Hello students, welcome to the 6th SEM chemistry class. Myself Dr. Vijayalakshmi Edali. Here we are going to discuss about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are one of the main food elements. Among the 5 main food elements, carbohydrate is one. So which are the 5 main food factors, that is carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins and minerals. So carbohydrate, the name is given initially when the carbohydrates are discovered. Their structure is identified. They are having the structure like C carbon X and H2O Y. So hydrates of carbon, H2O, carbon and water molecule ratio is like this. So they look like hydrates of carbon, so the name given as carbohydrates. But later when other carbohydrates are discovered, so it is got to know that the formula is not exactly like this. So what are carbohydrates then? Carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones, or compounds which gives these on hydrolysis are called carbohydrates. Polyhydroxy means more than one hydroxyl group is present, and along with that hydroxyl group, aldehyde or ketonic group is present. So there are two functional groups are present in carbohydrates. Examples for carbohydrates are glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, lactose, starch, cellulose, glycogen. So many we can give as an example. These carbohydrates constitute a major class of naturally occurring organic compounds. They are essential to the maintenance of life in both plants and animals. They provide raw materials for many important industries, that including textiles, paper industries, artificial silk, films, plastic, drug, fermentation, explosives, food industry. So number of industries. For the number of industries, carbohydrates provide the raw materials. So these are polyfunctional compounds, means they contain two types of functional group. One is a hydroxyl group, another one is carbonyl group. So carbonyl group is maybe aldehyde or ketone. Formation of carbohydrates in nature occurs in green plants by a process called photosynthesis. Okay. So in the green plants, by the process called photosynthesis, in presence of a pigment chlorophyll which is present in the plants, which catalyzes the conversion of carbon dioxide and water into a sugar molecule. For this, it utilizes solar energy. So carbon dioxide, atmospheric carbon dioxide is absorbed by the plants and moisture. So carbon dioxide and water in chlorophyll pigment, which is present in the stem and leaves, mainly in the leaves of the plants, and by utilizing solar energy, it converts the carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. Along with that, it liberates oxygen. So plants liberates oxygen. So along with the formation of carbohydrates, plants liberates oxygen to the atmosphere. So we told that carbohydrates are having the formula CnH2O, or we may call as X, CnH2O, hydrates of carbon. So there are number of carbohydrates are present. Definition also says that polyhydroxyaldehyde or polyhydroxyketones or the compounds which gives these polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones on hydrolysis. So there are vast number of carbohydrates are present in the nature. Then how to study the carbohydrates? That is classification of carbohydrates into a different categories. Then the study of that compounds becomes easy. So here classification of carbohydrates. Before that classification, we told that these are polyhydroxy, means more than one hydroxyl group is present. So means at least two hydroxyl groups are required to form one carbohydrate, and along with that another one functional group is aldehyde or ketone. So the simplest carbohydrates, they are glyceraldehyde. So in the glyceraldehyde, aldehyde group is present and two alcohol groups. So polyhydroxyaldehyde. Another one is here two hydroxyl groups are present and ketonic group. So dihydroxyacetone. These two are called the simplest carbohydrates which are available in the nature. We'll go for the classification of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates classified depending upon the number of simpler units, that is monomer units present. Number of simple sugar molecules present in that molecule. So they are classified as monosaccharides, oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. There are three classes: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. Saccharide is sugar. So depending upon number of sugar molecules, the carbohydrates are classified. Mono itself, it indicates one. Monosaccharides, one monomer unit, one sugar molecule. So these are the simplest carbohydrates. They won't give further simpler carbohydrates on hydrolysis. These are itself the simple carbohydrates. So examples for monosaccharides are glucose, fructose, galactose, ribose. So there are 5-membered carbons, 6-membered carbons, 3-membered. So already we have discussed, that is glyceraldehyde, dihydroxyacetone. They all are monosaccharides. These monosaccharides, depending upon these monosaccharides are further classified into two subclasses. One is depending upon the functional group present, they are classified as aldoses and ketoses. If the functional group is aldehyde, then they are called aldoses. If the functional group present is ketone, then they are called ketoses. And depending upon the number of carbons present. So we already know that minimum 3 carbons are required, because there are more than one hydroxyl groups, means minimum 2 hydroxyl groups. So they are present on 2 carbons, because carbohydrates are the stable molecules. So both the hydroxyl groups are present on 2 different carbons. And one is another functional group, that is aldehyde or ketone. So minimum 3 carbons are required. So if the 3 carbons are there, then they are called trioses. 4 carbons, then they are called tetroses. 5 carbon pentose, 6 carbon hexose, 7 carbon heptose. So on it is continued. So example, suppose if the 3 carbons are present and they contain aldehyde group, then it is called aldotriose. Example, glyceraldehyde. If 4 carbons and aldehyde group is present, aldotetrose, example erythrose. Aldopentose, aldehyde group, and 5 carbons, aldopentose, example is ribose, xylose. Okay. Aldohexose, aldehyde group containing 6 carbons. So examples are glucose and galactose are the most common examples. If carbohydrates contains a ketonic group and there are 3 carbons, then they are called ketotriose. Example dihydroxyacetone. Ketotetrose, example erythrulose. Ketopentose, example ribulose, xylulose. Ketohexoses, example fructose. So like that it is continued. So this is about the monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates. They won't give further simpler sugars on hydrolysis. They are further classified into 2 types depending upon functional group and depending upon number of carbon units present. So depending upon the functional group, they are classified as aldoses and ketoses, and depending upon number of carbons present as trioses, tetroses, pentoses, hexoses. Then while giving the name, combiningly the functional group and number of carbons is taken. So aldotriose, aldotetrose, aldopentose, aldohexose, ketotriose, ketotetrose, ketohexose, like this. The functional group and number of carbons both are taken here. The next class is oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides are more than 1 monomer units are present here. So on hydrolysis, these oligosaccharides gives definite number of monomer units. Usually we will take 2 to 10 monomer units which are obtained on hydrolysis, then we consider it as a oligosaccharides. So for more than 10 monomer units are present, then it is considered as polysaccharides. So oligosaccharides means on hydrolysis, these carbohydrates yields definite number of monomer units. Suppose the oligosaccharide on hydrolysis gives 2 monomer units, then it is called disaccharide. Example for disaccharide is sucrose, maltose, lactose. These 3 are most common examples. Sucrose on hydrolysis yields 2 monomer units. One is glucose, another one is fructose. Maltose on hydrolysis gives 2 glucose units. Lactose on hydrolysis gives glucose and galactose as monomers. So these all yields 2 monomer units on hydrolysis. So they are called disaccharides. Trisaccharides. If a carbohydrate on hydrolysis gives 3 monomer units, then it is called trisaccharide. Most common example is raffinose, which on hydrolysis gives 1 molecule of glucose, 1 molecule of fructose and 1 molecule of galactose. Tetrasaccharide, the oligosaccharide on hydrolysis gives 4 monomer units, is called tetrasaccharide. Example, stachyose, which gives 1 molecule of glucose, 1 molecule of fructose and 2 molecules of galactose on hydrolysis. So if a oligosaccharide yields 5 monomer units on hydrolysis, then it is called pentasaccharide, hexasaccharide, heptasaccharide, octasaccharide, like this. So depending upon number of monomer units obtained on hydrolysis, the oligosaccharides are subclassified. The next class of the carbohydrates is polysaccharides. Poly, the name itself indicates more number, infinite number. So when a carbohydrate on hydrolysis yields infinite number of monomer units, then it is called polysaccharides. These polysaccharides are again classified depending upon the types of the monomers obtained as homopolysaccharides and heteropolysaccharides. Homopolysaccharides means the polysaccharide on hydrolysis gives number of single monomer units. Means, for example, starch. Starch on hydrolysis gives glucose molecules only. Number of glucose molecules are obtained. Only one type of monomer units are obtained. Glycogen. So this also on hydrolysis gives only glucose molecules on hydrolysis. Cellulose. This also gives only glucose molecules on hydrolysis. Chitin. That also gives chondroitin sulfate on hydrolysis. So, homopolysaccharides are the polysaccharides which yield infinite number of monomer units. That is, only one type of monomer units are obtained. Heteropolysaccharides. Heteropolysaccharides are the polysaccharides which on hydrolysis gives or these contains two or more different types of monomer units. For example, hyaluronic acid, heparin, chondroitin sulfate, agar, etc. These are heteropolysaccharides which are present in the cell wall of the organisms, cell wall of the bacteria, cell wall of the plants, animals, in the cell, in the blood as a carbohydrate. So hyaluronic acid, heparin, chondroitin sulfate, agar. So agar is produced by a type of bacteria. So these are called heteropolysaccharides. So these heteropolysaccharides yields more than one type of monomer units on hydrolysis. So this is the classification of carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are mainly classified as monosaccharides, oligosaccharides and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates. On further hydrolysis, they won't give further simpler carbohydrates. Oligosaccharides are the carbohydrates which gives definite number of monomer units on hydrolysis. So depending upon the number of monomer units obtained, they are further classified as disaccharides, tri, tetra, pentasaccharides, hexasaccharides, etc. Polysaccharides, so again classified, poly means infinite number of monomer units. So infinite number of monomer units are obtained on hydrolysis are called polysaccharides. Depending upon the type of monomers present in the carbohydrate, they are classified as homopolysaccharides and heteropolysaccharides. Homopolysaccharides on hydrolysis yield number of only one type of monomer units. Heteropolysaccharides yield two or more type of different monomer units. So this classification is the modern classification which is based on the number of monomer units present. Another classification is sugars and non-sugars. Sugars and non-sugars. The name itself indicates sugars. So we know sugars which we are using in the home is the table sugar, which is obtained from the sugar cane, sugar. That is nothing but sucrose. So sugars are, so classification depending upon physical properties. Sugars which are crystalline, soluble in water and sweet in taste are called sugars. The carbohydrates which are amorphous, insoluble in water and tasteless are called non-sugars. Usually the monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, some of the oligosaccharides comes in the part sugars. All the polysaccharides are non-sugars. For example, starch. You may take any flour, that is ಜೋಳದ ಹಿಟ್ಟು, ಗೋಧಿ ಹಿಟ್ಟು. So these are polysaccharides. Starch. It is amorphous, tasteless and insoluble in water. So depending upon that physical properties, carbohydrates are classified as sugars and non-sugars. Depending upon some chemical properties, another one classification is there: reducing sugars, non-reducing sugars. So here all the polysaccharides are non-reducing sugars. Some monosaccharides and oligosaccharides comes in the part sugars and some in the non-reducing sugars. Reducing sugars means which reduces the other substances. For example, when the carbohydrate is treated with a Fehling solution, which contains copper ions Cu plus 2, it reduces that copper ions from Cu plus 2 to Cu plus. So Cu plus 2 is converted into Cu plus. This is reduction. This is catalyzed by the carbohydrates. So which converts this Cu plus 2 to Cu plus. So it is indicated by Cu plus 2 is blue in color, and when it is converted into Cu plus, it gives a brown precipitate. So Fehling solution contains Cu plus 2. So carbohydrates reduces Fehling's solution. The carbohydrates which reduces Benedict's reagent are called reducing sugars. They also reacts with the Tollens reagent and reduces the Tollens reagent. Tollens reagent contain silver ions Ag plus. It reduces them to Ag, silver. The sugars which does not reacts with Fehling solution or does not reduces Fehling solution, Benedict's solution, Tollens reagent are called non-reducing sugars. So these are the 3 classifications. The most important is depending upon the number of monomer units. So in the next class, we are going to discuss about the some of chemical properties of carbohydrates. Thank you.